Okay. Today we're going to start Amar Rava. It's the last two words on 66. Yeah, the last two words on 66b. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And in this case, we're learning we should have the base of English immediately. And we're learning Luli Nishma Sava Goldabas Baruch Yamin and Sanol Zev and Ben Sian. Rabbi needs to refer Shlema. Okay. We had before a discussion about Mechila B'tas. If a lender ends up collecting something that he wasn't supposed to, and the borrower thought that it was okay, and then he ends up, the lender has to get the case was the property. It's Nachman. Someone lent money. You don't pay me back by 3 years. I'm taking the property. He said that was an asmachta, and he didn't really agree to giving the property. And anyway, the lender ends up confiscating the property. But then the halacha steps in, the Besdin steps in and says, no, you can't take the property. You have to give it back. But in the interim, the lender had eaten the fruits of that property. So because the borrower had thought that was acceptable, it was a mistake that he made in the halacha. He thought that it was okay. So he was meichelim. He said, "Yeah, okay, whatever. It's my loss. I give up on the fruits because the lender got the property." So at first, Reb Nachman says that hadar ara v'hadar peri. You have to return the land and you have to return the fruits, which means that Reb Nachman holds a mechila b'tas is not a mechila. That the fact that the borrower forgave him, thinking that was he lost it and the lenders confiscated it. We say that was all a tos. That was a mistake. Tos means mistake, and it's not considered a mechila, and he really has to give it back. Mechila b'tas by mechila. But then the Gemara asks, 1 second, Rav Nachman holds that mechila b'tas is yes a mechila, because we have a case of someone that sold fruits of a tree that hadn't grown in yet. And Rav Nachman says that even if he ate the fruits that he didn't really acquire, so we don't take it back. 1 second, he thought he acquired it, that's why he ate it. And that's why the person forgave him for it, gave up on it. So now we're saying that he doesn't give it back. So we have a contradiction in Mechila B'tas. Does it work? Does it not work? So Rav Nachman said, who's asking the question? The Gemara is asking the question. The Gemara answers that there's difference between a sale and a loan. The case where Mechila B'tas was yes, a Mechila, that's because it was a sale. By a loan, it looks like interest. So we made this difference. Okay, now comes along Rava and says, oh, you want to say that by a sale, Mechila B'tas, a mistaken Mechila, is yes considered a Mechila? It is considered forgiven? Yeah, you have to think of examples of when this would show up. But it would be in a case where the people think that the halacha is one way. So therefore, they did a bunch of transactions, and it ends up that one person had gained something, and it turns out that wasn't the halacha. So you have to take back these transactions. Now, not everything is going to go back because some things were already consumed. So regarding those things that were consumed, you said, but I thought it was mine, and you told me that I could, So is that considered forgiven based on a mistake that was made before? Okay. So Amar Rava says, "Have Yisivna Kamed Rav Nachman." I was sitting in front of Rav Nachman, and I was about to ask him a question on his teaching from the rules of Einah. The Gemara is going to explain what the question is. You can think about it on your own, but the rules of Einah is when someone buys, he's overcharged by 1/6. So what's the halacha? That it has to go back. Now he thought that when he paid the money, he thought that that was the price. Right? Later on, he finds out it wasn't the price. So he forgave him. It was mechila b'tos.
It's like the benefit, right?
Sorry? Ina is to, what was it? Price fraud. But what was the word for it? Exploitation. Yeah. You don't like it.
There used to be a concept of something called the just price.
The just price.
And I think
what would not be the just price?
that was a concept that throughout the world for many centuries. The idea was that just that there was a just price, and if you exceeded it in some fashion, that was a problem. It was in secular law also.
So we hear from the rule of Einah, we see a question on Rav Nachman, because from Einah we see that even though the purchaser gave it, thinking that that was the correct price, and then he finds out later, but the rule is that the seller has to return it. So you see that mechila b'tos is not considered mechila. The purchaser was meichel, he forgave it, thinking that that was the correct price, but that was a mistake. Okay, so va'idik, and he looks at me, or he examined me, chazisan islandness, and he showed me that from islandness there's a proof to him. Because I thought I had a question on Rav Nachman from Einah. Rav Nachman tells me that no, I have a proof from islandness. Remember what islandness is? Islandness is the woman that can't have children. She's underdeveloped. She doesn't mature.
This one was because the buyer didn't know it was being price fraud. Right. But in the event that he did know, and they agreed to it, it was okay.
Yeah, then it's okay. Yeah. So it goes like this. For Einah, the mechila b'tos, so we'll have a mechila. You see, but you see what happens by Einah? Einah is the price fraud. It's mechila b'tos. I'm right on top of 67. Okay. So it's not considered forgiven. Va'idik chazisan islandness. What did he prove from islandness? Realness to mechila b'tos. If you have a mechila by an islandness, by this woman that's not developed, it is considered mechila. We have to see what we're talking about. We don't have the Tanan. You have a Mishnah. It says Hamima Enes. This is a woman that her father passed away, a young girl, and the sages instituted that her mother and brothers can marry her off. So she shouldn't be just hanging around in the street. People shouldn't mistreat her. So they said that she can get married. Usually, an underage girl would come and get married by the father. They instituted that she can get married, but the only thing is that it's not a biblical marriage, so she can just walk out without a divorce. She rejects this husband. It's called mian. Bashnia, this is a rabbinic prohibition of marriage because it's a relative. It's not a biblical relative at the biblical level, but at the rabbinic level, and so they're not supposed to get married. Islandness, or a woman that can't have children, but probably at the time of the marriage, the person wasn't able to tell that. Only found out later that he had married an islandness. So Einhem Ksuba. These women, when they get divorced, they don't have maybe they don't even need the divorce, right? We just say it's mekachtos. This is a mistaken sale. They don't get a ksuba. They also don't get the fruits that they brought into property into the marriage. The husband eats the fruits. The husband doesn't have to return those fruits. And what we're seeing from this is that is that he doesn't, that when the whole sale was not a valid sale, it's not a sale. The whole marriage was not a valid marriage. It was all a mistake. But it turns out that the purchaser, in this case, the husband, had gained some benefits. He has some of her property that he ate and used, and he doesn't need to return it. And the reason why he doesn't need to return it was because she forgave it to him. She thought that this marriage was going to be good. Right, and we're saying that he can keep those things. He doesn't have to pay her for the produce that he ate and whatever from her property. What would Mazinus mean? Mazinus means that she doesn't get, he doesn't have to feed her. And if she brought in garments into the marriage, he doesn't have to give them back. Let's say she gave him, he wouldn't have the wedding dress. He would have the tuxedo. Wow. Let's say she brought in garments in the dowry. He doesn't have to give them back. Well, what we're seeing now is that mechila betos is considered a mechila. It was all a mistake, and nevertheless, it's considered forgiven. So now the Gemara says, "V'loihi," but all of this is not accurate because there was really no question on Rav Nachman from Einah. And islandness does not support him either. Because the Rabbi had a question on him from Einah. Einah, we see that mechila betos is loy havi mechila because the person has to return it. It's a mistake of how did they translate mechila? Forgiveness. Yeah, mistaken forgiveness. We see by Einah is not considered forgiven because the person has to return it. Oh, that's what it is. He doesn't have to repay her the debts for her sustenance. Okay. So, why is Einah not considered a question? Einah, the case of Einah. Why doesn't this prove anything? You see, there's a little bit of a difference.
If the mother got hit, like in a fight or walking around by accident, got hit, now she can't give birth. Would it be different? She's able to give birth, now she can't give birth.
Yeah, that's different because when he married her, she was able to. We were talking about that he didn't know. He thought he was marrying a regular woman. Turns out she's not a regular woman. It's not because of something that happened later. It's just she never developed. What we're seeing now is that when we were talking about mechila betos, we were talking about where the person knew that he was giving something. The thing is, he thought that's what he was supposed to be giving. Turned out that the halacha was different. He thought that asmachta kanya. It turns out that's asmachta like kanya. When it was a gamble, he thought that that's acquired. And turns out the halacha was different. But he knew the value of what he was given, and it turned out that the halacha was different. So we say that is it a mechila? Is it not a mechila? Over here, when it came to Einah, the person didn't even know that he was giving anything extra. He thought that was the price. So this is that's not considered a mechila. He didn't even know what he was giving that he was going to be meichel. He thought that he was paying the regular price. There's really nothing here. There's nothing here that he was aware of. In other cases, he was aware that he was giving something. He just thought that was the halacha.
Does that void the transaction even if it is?
It's too much. Oh no! If it's a mechila,
yeah.
If we would say by mechila, then we would say that okay, he thought that was the price, so he paid it.
The seller thought.
The purchaser thought that was the price,
but the seller also.
Okay, and whatever the case is, even when we find out different, we would say, oh, it's a mechila.
But that means.
But we don't say that.
So it's a valid sale.
So we say that
It's like a
the sale
diavad,
could be invalid. Depends on how much the price fraud was. If it was 1/6, then more than 1/6.
Could, so instead of just nullifying that transaction, could the buyer just repay?
The seller
or no,
return the
would
overcharge.
seller return
Yeah,
overcharge? Yeah.
depending on how much it is. There was that option. Okay. And the story with the woman that never developed, that's not a support from Nachman either. Why? She's willing to give him these gifts because she wants to be considered married. It's better for a woman to be married at least once than to, oh, she was married, yes, than to have never been married. It's better for her resume. Shidduch resume.
Shakespearean. Better to have been married than never to have been married. That's what you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how the quote goes.
What was that?
Yeah.
That's the quote.
Yeah, that's the quote.
Okay. Was that actually from Shakespeare?
Yeah.
Better to have loved the most.
never to have loved it.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay. So that's why we're saying over here it's not a mechila b'tos, it's an actual mechila, because she's actually happy about the situation that she was in. At least not not plan A, but for plan B that was okay. It's the Amra Leila Gavra. There was a woman that told the man, Zil Zavin Liara Mikrivai, go and buy a land, a field, something from my relatives. Okay, also Zavinla. So this is like a shliach. The shliach goes and buys the property. Amalei, so the relative says, if I come up with the money, will you return the field to me? In other words, he obviously needed the money, so he was willing to sell a property. He says, if I come up with the money, will you give it back? This Gemara is jumping back to.
we quoted it wasn't Shakespeare. I quote Tennyson. Just sounded like I get the mix. He was also a lord. So.
Amalei. So the purchaser, which is the shliach, says, "At v'navla achi." You, navla is a third person pronoun. You and him or her, you and her in this case, are relatives. Achi means brothers. You and her are relatives. You'll work it out. You work it out. Okay. So he said like this, like non-committal type of deal. So yeah, you'll figure it out. I'm just I'm in the middle of this. Okay. So what's the halacha? Was he expecting that the property is going to come back if he has money or not? With a comment like that from this person that's doing the deal. Amar Rabba Baravuna says, Kol at v'nav la'achi, Amar sam chadaiti v'legamer machni. Kol nav la'achi, Amar sam chadaiti v'legamer machni. Anyone that uses an expression like that you and her are relatives, then he's relying on that. Sam chadaite. This is an asmachta. He's relying that he's going to be able to get it back. But like Amar Makni, and then it's not a real sale. Sale is something that you can't get back. Try to get back something back after you click purchase on the whatever website. Try to get it back. It's like several days on the phone to try to get anything back. So so it's a sale, you can't get it back. So Rabbi Baravuna says that's a good enough expression to mean that it's not a complete sale. Ara Hadra, so the land has to go back to the seller. There's this woman doesn't keep the land. What about Peri Mai? What about the fruits? The fruits that she ate before the guy got the money. Does she have to return out those fruits? Because what really happened here is that she gives money to a seller. The seller repays the money. And in the time when the seller was holding the money, she was eating fruits as well. So that's the type of interest. She pays money, she gets the money back, and she eats fruits. Now, yes, there was a property that moved during that time. Not moved, but moved ownership. So, but that's considered interest. My ribis ksutzahavi. Do we say that that's a set amount? And v'yetzi b'dayanim, ribis ksutza, it's real ribis, and therefore the rule is that ribis, real interest, the judges can extract it in court. You have to repay it.
Right.
But if it's avak ribis, if it's rabbinic level ribis, the dust of interest, so then it does not get returned. So with this type of interest, do we say that this is ribis ksutza, and therefore she has to repay it in court? Or do we say that this is avak ribis? Or do we say that it's the dust of ribis, and she doesn't have to repay it?
The one that the judges could recover is like a preset amount.
Usually it's preset. Yeah, that's the thing. Here it's not preset. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay, so the Gemara says, Amar Rabba Baravuna. Rabba Baravuna says, Mistabra ki avak kavi, avak ribis havenyet b'dinim. It's logical to say that it's only considered avak ribis. Probably that's why, because it wasn't predetermined how much it's supposed to be. V'chein Amar Rava. Rabba. V'chein Amar Rabba. So Rabba Baravuna and Rabba say, Ki avak ribis havenyet b'dayanim, that it's avak ribis, and it cannot. It's only the dust of interest, and it doesn't get returned in court. Amalei Abaya l'Rabba. Abaya says to Rabba, Mashkanta mai. Let's say this was done a little bit different. Let's say this was done as a collateral, or like a mortgage, where the lender takes the land as a collateral, and he's going to be eating the fruits while he's in the field. And then when the person comes back and pays up, then he gives the field back. So what happens then? Why do we say over there, in the case before where there was a sale that was like some chadaita, where it was a sale that wasn't a real sale, and so the fruits, the land gets returned, but the fruits don't get returned. Why did we say that it doesn't get returned? Because it wasn't a set price of how much those fruits were at the beginning to say that it's real ribis. Well, the same thing here by the mashkin, by the collateral. Over here also, it wasn't a set price. You don't know how much the fruits are going to be while it wasn't say, I'm going to eat this and this amount of fruits. It was whatever it grows.
But he's still benefiting.
He's benefiting.
So
and he wasn't supposed to do that. But can the court extract it afterwards?
Oh.
So Idilma, or maybe there's a huge difference here. Idilma Hasmasvini Hachalva. Over there, that was a sale. The sale didn't work out. And it looks like it's a loan, but it wasn't a real loan. It was really a sale of a property that didn't work. Over here, it's an actual loan. An actual loan is coming back with extra money. And maybe this should be real ribis. So how should we look at this? That's the question.
It depends, like, if it's going to be like sales. Like if the lender gets back the property, but like as a sale, it would be allowed. Because the person that
The problem is, what about the produce that he ate? The borrower ate, that the lender ate. The lender. Well, here it's the purchaser. The purchaser is the lender.
But if he owned the property, well, the time that he ate the produce is fine.
Right.
Then he doesn't pay, and then the lender comes and like forecloses on him. That's considered like a new sale.
Okay.
It was okay.
Granted. He'll bring up a good point that every time a property is sold, whether it's sold to the same person or sold back or not, if it's a valid sale, then it's just another transaction. You don't say that all the produce that he ate is considered interest. that's a valid sale. But here we're talking about where it wasn't a valid sale because it wasn't a smachta. Yeah, and okay, now in our case, where the question came in, a bias question is what if it's not a sale at all? What if it's a loan with the collateral? And he ate the fruits. Do we say that it can be extracted in court? We're not asking over here if you're allowed to eat the fruits. We're asking what type of interest is it? Is it interest that's set where it could be extracted in court, or is it not? Or is it considered that it wasn't a set price? So who's responding? Rabba responds, Hasamtai Mamai, what's the reason over there why we said that it wasn't extracted in court? Mishum Blaikatzlai, because it wasn't a set price. Well, Hachanami Blaikatzlai over here also it's not a set price, and you can't extract it in court. Amar of Papi. If Papi says, Avid Ravina Uvda V'chashev V'apik Peri, the Laker Rabba Baravuna, that Ravina did not pass like Rabba Baravuna. He actually extracted the produce from the case of someone that sold a field. Someone that sold the field, and with an asmachta, thinking the field was sold, and then the field goes back, and the fruits had to go back as well, even though it wasn't a set. He held that was enough. Montashin. That's the original. That was probably montash. Amar Mar Braid Rav Yosef Shmei Rava Mar, son of Rav Yosef, says in the name of Rava. It's interesting because they're probably the same generation, because Rav Yosef is like a teacher of Rava, a teacher of Abaya. So his son and is saying something in the name of Rava, like a cousin.
It says Rav Yosef taught for 1 year and Rav took his place.
Very good. Yeah. And the other way, Rabba taught for 22 years, I think. Yeah, and then Rav Yosef took over for 2 years. I think. Very good. Yeah, it could be.
That's why he didn't want to do it.
Right.
I don't know, somehow he ended up.
Yeah. Is that in one of those books? One of those.
Why I didn't want to be the teacher.
Right. So he says in the name of Brava, Mashkanta. Yeah, okay, there's two types of mashkanta. Mashkanta is these mortgages. One type of mortgage is there's a lot of types, and the Gemara over here is going to go through like different customs in different places how it works. But one type is where if the lender ends up coming with the comes up with the money, he can actually take it back, take the foreclosed property back. He comes up with the money. The other type is he can't take it back. Anyway, it says Hamashkanta, this type of mortgage, Asra Dimsalki, in places where if the borrower comes up with the money, yeah, did I say the lender? If the borrower comes up with the money, he can get his field back. Then Achal Shir Zuzi, let's say the lender that was holding on to the collateral, to the property, Misalkinan Lei, once he eats the amount of produce that would be the same amount as the loan, then he could take him out of the property. Why?
The borrower, even after he was foreclosed.
The guy has this property. Okay, let's set it up. Ruvain lends money to Shimon, and Shimon doesn't pay, and Ruvain takes the property. Now, maybe it's not that he doesn't pay. Maybe it's not a foreclosure. Maybe it's just takes it as a collateral. But I'm not sure exactly how the time works. At which point it's considered his. Whatever the case is, when Shimon comes up with the money, he can then go to Ruvain, pay him the loan and take his property back. Now, if that's the case, so then as Reuven is eating the produce of this property, he's eating a certain amount of value. If it reaches the value of the loan, so they're saying in the name of Rava that he can tell him that, look, I've just basically paid you the money. So now give me the property back. But what happens if achal tfei? Let's say he ate more than the loan. So then that you can't take back from Reuven. Shimon can't take it back from Reuven, from the lender, because that's avak ribis. We didn't make up originally how much that was going to be, how much more he was going to take. He just happened to take more. Okay, so that's avak ribis. It's the dust of ribis. You can't extract that. You can't take that back. Another thing you can't do is, just like you can't take it back, let's say there was another debt that he had to him that Reuven had. Shimon owed Reuven some other business deal. You say, well, look at how much produce you ate over there. You ate, the whole debt was $100. You ate $150. So let that cover some of the loan that we had, some other thing. It doesn't work like that. It only works for the original loan that mashkin was set up for. And but he asked me, when it comes to orphans, let's say that Shimon was an orphan. In other words, his father was the one that borrowed the money, and his father died, and now Shimon has this. He's a minor orphan, right? So now they don't. Shimon doesn't have the right to forgive anything, so therefore he doesn't have the power to forgive. So therefore, whatever Reuven takes that's extra is automatically, it's like blocked. You weren't supposed to take that. You weren't supposed to take it. It's clearly not forgiven. He's going to have to give that back. And if he does take extra, then we're going to count it for some other debt.
Oh. Really protecting the orphans.
They're protecting the orphans. Okay. The idea of the apotropos is to stop these, is to protect them.
As you mentioned, the minor orphans, we discussed this once before. You know, like, what about if the person's older? Is he still an orphan? I read somewhere in the interim then that orphans are only minor orphans.
Right.
It's their mitzvah,
Right.
they're no longer orphans. Otherwise, everyone that's saying there is good is an orphan.
Right.
Orphan over for a bas mitzvah.
Right. Right. We're talking about this guy in this old guy was a funny guy. He walked with 2 canes. They'd walk up and down the aisle in Shalom El Harbor and say, Habrachman, it was 98 or something. Habrachmanis, ben a Yassim from Beida Zayten. So orphan from both parents. Have pity on me. Okay. Ravashi says, now that we say that if someone ate more than the loan, that we don't extract that extra, we don't take it back. So even if he ate just the regular amount, let me sell someone here. Does he want to come in? Who? Yeah. Does he want to come learn? Maybe they want to come in. So, then even if he eats the amount of the loan itself, you have to actually pay the money, not just the reduction, not just reducing the loan from what the person's eating in the field. My time, what's the reason for this? because to take him out without actually paying money is afukiminehu. It's taking money from him, which is havi avakribus and yetz b'dayanim. You see, the produce that he's eating is really interest. All of it is considered interest. And interest you can't take avakribus, interest that's not set beforehand, you can't take out. So if you can't take it out, that means that you're not really giving it either. And so therefore, the only way to get him out of the field is to actually pay him cash and not use the produce. Ravashi paskind by Yisayim as if they would be adults, and seems to be different. Which meant that he didn't take back more. He didn't take back more than the loan, than the original loan. Yeah, only the original loan. I'm a Rava Breder Rav Yosef Mishmei. I'm a Rava Breder Rav Yosef Mishmei Rava. This is now Rava in the name of Rava. Rava Rav Yosef's son says the name of Rava. Mashkanta, this type of collateral, a property, Ba'asra, the Misalti, in places where they, when the loan is paid back, you take the collateral back. The only way that you should be eating the produce, that the lender should be eating the produce, is if he's keeping track of how much produce he's eating and chipping away at the loan. But if he's a Torah scholar, if the lender happens to be a Torah scholar, he shouldn't even be eating, even if he's chipping away at the loan. It looks like there's interest going on. So how does he take the produce? How does he get rid of the debt that's owed to him? The kitzus, only with kitzus. So we're about to see what kitzus is. This fits with, according to the opinion that says that kitzus is permissible. But according to the opinion that says kitzus is forbidden, how are you going to explain that? The itmar, because we have a statement like this: kitzusa. When it came to kitzusa, which we didn't explain yet, it's machlekes. One of them said, we don't even say who holds what. One of them says kitzusa is permissible. One says kitzusa is aser. Okay, what is all of this? What is kitzusa? What's the case that we're arguing about? The Amalei that he says to him, Ad Chomesh Shnin, Achilna B'loi Nechaisa, Achilna B'loi Nechaisa, Yekan Ve'elech, Shemin L'Kulaped. 5 years, I get to live in the property and eat everything. I think he means he maintains the property as well. And that is without any deduction of the debt. After 5 years, that's when the debt starts to get deducted. It's like how all the interest payments are the first 5 years.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. So one says that this is aser, and one of them says that this is mutter. How could this be mutter? I guess the way that it would be mutter is because we consider it like a temporary sale. The person takes the property, and it's his property during that time. It's actually his property. I guess that's a way out. It sounds like, huh? Uh-huh. Ikadamri, but there's another pshat in this. Yeah, it sounds like it's interest. You live in the property for free, and you only start deducting afterwards. Ikadamri, that those that say kol b'lei nechaisa, no, you can never do that. To live in to take the produce of the property without deducing the debt. So what would be the case that they're arguing about? That for 5 years I'm going to eat by deducing the debt. After that, I'm going to pay you back everything.
Since this was measurable, the rabbis would be able to take it back. could estimate, oh, this is $1,000 a month.
Yeah, but is it? I'm not sure. Are we saying that it's how much each month is, how much each year is, or are we talking about how much fruits he's getting from it? Fruits is not set, but if there's a value to each year. Okay. Manda Usr become icy. You notice we had two cases here. One was where there were 5 years where the debt was not involved in that. If that's prohibited, then Shari B'Basraisa, then they would allow the second case where the entire time was deducting from the debt. Manda Usr B'Basraisa, but the one that says that the entire time is deducting from the debt, so and even that's prohibited. So, how are you ever allowed to eat from the produce? Are you ever allowed to eat from the produce? According to that opinion, you're never. Whenever you take the mashkin, and there's one opinion that says that you can't eat the produce even from the very start. So how do you get the debt down? It says, well, shariki mashkanta desura. You have to do it the way they do it in surah. The kasvi bahachi, they write like this: the mishlam shlin iling, when these years are completed, tepikara double kesef, the land goes back without any money. In other words, over here they're changing it into, instead of the produce, they're changing it into the amount of time. Every year has a value. Mashkanta desura gives each year a value, and therefore you're actually like purchasing the land for a certain amount of time, and then whatever the produce is, that's what the produce is.
You know, it sounds like
Right.
Yeah.
Rav Papa, Rav Hunabred, Rav Yeshua Mitavai, Rav Papa, Rav Hunabred, Rav Yeshua, those are friends. Those are contemporaries. Later, Amiroim says, "Hi mashkanta basa de misalki." When it comes to a mashkanta, these collaterals, in a place where if the borrower comes up with the money, he's able to remove the lender from the property. Ein bal chayev geiv mimenu. If the guy had another debt, in other words, Ruvain took a mashkin from Shimon, but Ruvain happens to owe money to Yisachar. Now Yisachar can't take the property that Ruvain had taken from Shimon. Talking about if it wasn't really Ruvain, we're talking about when he's an orphan. And the reason why is because we're considering that since he doesn't actually own the property, he only owns the produce. So we're looking at it as metaltalin, as personality, and a creditor can't collect from orphans the personalty. And if he passes away, his firstborn child doesn't take a double portion of this mashkin because it's only potential profit and it's not actual value. And if the 7th year comes, it's not considered that he owns a property. And so therefore the debt gets lost by Shemitah. We'll see the opposite. If it would be a land where, if it would be a place where the borrower never gets the property back because of this collateral, so then Bal Chayv gave him, then because he owns the actual property, if Reuven has another debt, if Reuven, besides being a creditor, also has a debt to someone else, that other creditor, Yisachar, can come and collect from this because this is considered realty. And if Reuven passes away, his firstborn son takes a double portion because that's real value. And the loans, if he owns property, it's considered that it's already been collected when Shemitah comes, because the creditor, it's as if the creditor has a handle on that property. And it's considered already collected. So Shemitah doesn't take away the loan. Let me get to the two dots. If it's a land, a place where they remove the lender from the land after the borrower pays back, even if the dates had fallen off the tree and they're sitting on these, they would spread out some sheets or cloths to catch the dates. That also goes back, even though it's like, it seems like it's already been collected, but no. However, if it's already been put into his own baskets, that's a different story. If someone goes into a store and the seller puts produce into the bags of the containers of the purchaser, it's in the purchaser's containers, but on the property of the seller, is it considered that the purchaser acquires it? So according to the opinion that says that even in the seller's property, the containers of the purchaser acquire. So over here, those sheets that are around the tree that are collecting are considered the containers of the purchaser. And I feel like when a assistant kanina, he would already acquire it. And then when the property goes back, those fruits don't go back. It's already acquired. Okay, let's leave it here.
Seems like that's like when you go in Aldi, you have to bring
Aldi. Yeah.